Sup guys, J Martin here. So quick video today, or I don't know, might not end up being a short one, but just a few messages that I think are very important. But let me backpedal for a moment. I just want to start by saying thank you for clicking on this video. If there's anything I can provide you, if it's a simple yet empowering quote that you could feel in your soul that things will be fine, or a small lesson, a belief, or even just some affection as a friend, I'm giving you an authentic virtual hug right now. If you're a guy, here's your bro hug, brother. Sometimes a split second of appreciation goes a long way, so I see you and I appreciate you. Alright, now that's out of the way, here's a question that I'm obsessed to know the answer to. What makes the difference in the quality of people's lives? Right? What makes people leaders and other people followers? What makes people talk about a dream and never follow through? And other people seem to have a disproportionate advantage and power. Now, I'm sometimes hesitant to use the word power because normally I think it's a misrepresented word and has an ugly meaning to it, but some people virtually have the power to close their eyes, envision a reality they set their minds to, open their eyes, and make it all happen. You can throw any obstacle at them and they find a way to overcome it. What's the difference in those two people? Now, growing up for me, financially, I've seen both sides of the spectrum. As a kid living with my parents, we've had it good and we've had plenty of bad. More bad than the good in that area, but I've seen both. Now, home environment, relationships, and intimate relationships, where the most juice in life comes from, never been easy. Still left a little bit of trauma, although I've truly come to the realization that anything is possible and that there's a solution to any problem, but I can't lie. There's always going to be that 0.1% in my brain that, through trauma, thinks about the second law of thermodynamics that states things move towards disorder and chaos. But did I really grow up rough though? Or did we really grow up rough? To whose standards can I say I grew up rough to? And I'll tell you in a minute why you're not crediting yourself enough because you're much tougher than you think. But it's all relative. The kid down the block thinks his life is miserable right now just because his dad can't buy him a bicycle. We all have a fair amount of difficulties. Everyone has suffered for different things. Just know that no one's life is perfect. Some people are just better at pretending that they do than others. Was it Jim Carrey that said rich people have problems, just different problems? I might have butchered that one, but I think it was everyone should ha- everyone should be rich and famous to know that that isn't the answer. I don't know, something like that. But think about it. I used to think, oh, some people are just luckier than I am. You know, they grew up in the family, everybody loves each other, and they stay together. You know, some people are lucky and everybody in the family is educated. Or some people are lucky they grew up in a family with lots of money, so they have resources to do all these things. We live in a Facebook world, you get the idea, the highlights. But as much as I wanted to believe that story, that some people are just lucky, that they had a better family, when you pay really close attention and you're honest with yourself, that story doesn't hold up, does it? That story is a shortcut. The son of a billionaire is screwed since the day they were born. They're never going to be a self made person. I mean, when you look around, what truly happens to people that were given everything and they don't have to work for it? What happens to the person that's born and got total love and support from their family? They have total financial abundance. They don't have to work for anything whatsoever. They got all the great education. What happens to the majority of those? Not all. But the majority of those people don't build any muscle. They're not hungry because everything was handed to them, so they don't have that hunger that can drive them. And to be actually happy or fulfilled, you need to be driven by goals. But then there's the other set of people that life seems to have stepped on. You know the kind of people I'm talking about, right? Life has punched them in the mouth. They've experienced tremendous injustice. Nothing has been fair to them. They've been abused mentally, socially, spiritually, whatever. But very often, those are the very people that most of us are inspired by, who achieve levels that most people never dream about, and who especially touch society. For example, what would you guess would be the future for a child if I describe their background because most people think people are born to their destiny? Like, they came from this, so that's why they have that. The what was me mentality. What you've been through determines who you are. And most of us, if we're not succeeding, can tell everybody the stories of why we're in that place. But it's much more fun to tell people where you are today in spite of what happened in your life. That's a much more interesting story, isn't it? But if you look around, What if a person's story is this? True story, by the way. A person is born and their father is not there as a baby. Their father left before they got there. Their mother is going to raise them, and their mother is 13. A child being raised by a child. If that's all I told you, what would you predict the future of this child would be? Really positive or real negative? Negative. What if I said this 13-year-old mother didn't know what to do with his baby and was overwhelmed, so she gave the baby most of the time to her grandma, who had lots to deal with? And what if I told you, with the grandma not noticing, before this child was 13, she was sexually abused more than 3 times by people in family and friends? Now, a little baby being abused, a child being abused. What's the future? Doesn't look too bright, does it? What if I told you at 13, when the baby turned 13, this baby became exactly like her mother and became pregnant as well, followed exactly in the mother's footsteps? What if I told you at 13, when the baby arrived, the baby was stillborn? The baby died at birth. What would that do to an adult mom having a baby, much less than a 13-year-old child? Now, what if I told you the kid went a little crazy with her behavior, got so outrageous and out of control, they put her in an institution, but fortunately, the institution didn't have enough beds, so they couldn't keep her much more than a few days, and finally released her to a man who claimed to be her father, who she's never met? By now, I'm sure you figure out whose story this is. Who is this? This is Oprah Winfrey's story. Oprah Winfrey went through all that we've just said. Plus, she was African American at the time in the United States, when many people at the time of the economic culture didn't judge people by their character, they judged them by their color based on nothing whatsoever. This woman has become the most influential people in the world, females in the planet, and that's her story. Look, the reason why I mentioned this is that whatever story people around you have, whatever story you're being told, or the story you may be telling yourself, the bottom line is that you have to be so aware not to buy into a limiting story. Either someone else telling you that, or you telling yourself that. Your mindset, your worldview determines everything. That's why 2 people can be born into poverty and one rises out and one doesn't. Now, my next message for you, you're either going to love me or hate me for this. It just has that effect on people. Some of you might want to turn this off because this isn't for empty dreamers. But if you decide you're going to stick in, then it's important for you to know this. But it is not okay to be a weak loser. It's an ethical crime for you to allow yourself to be weak. And it's a disrespect to the people that believe in you. And it's not doing anything for the world for all that potential to go to waste. And you've gone through so much, but you're stronger than things are terrible. And things are pretty terrible, so that means you're pretty damn strong. Being weak is nothing to be ashamed of. Staying weak is. If you're lost in life, just admit that you're lost. Or just admit that you don't know what you're doing. There's lots of times when I have to tell myself, okay, I have no clue what I'm doing. I just have no knowledge at this thing right now. And that's good. It's a good habit to have, because the moment you admit to yourself you're missing something is the moment the answers start coming towards you. We don't want to acknowledge it because it makes us unhappy, but we have to give it recognition. The first noble truth in Buddhism, life is suffering. That's very much true. Life is suffering. In fact, it's worse than that because it's suffering contaminated with malevolence. If you grew up rough, your parents didn't protect you, you're lucky. Because you have those calluses in your head. Just like a gym rat has calluses in the palm of their hands. I grew up like that as well. Everything was just exposed to me. I was exposed to the world. If that's you too, that's the way you grow up. Now, I'm not saying life should always be that way, but it's the best antidote to vulnerability. Now, it's a little bit pessimistic, but the optimistic part of that is that you're so damn tough that you can actually deal with that. You know, the idea that in some sense we're a victim, there's some truth in that, given that nature is conspiring to destroy you. At the end, nature wins. We all die. But the question is, are you going to live before you die? Now, I'm just gonna assume if you're listening to this so far, you want to win. So this is good. I want that for you too. So let's go that direction. So what's the decision from here? Well, actually, you already know what you're supposed to do. I could just end this one right here, but there's something you're hesitating on. There's something you need to start or engage in. Maybe even something you just need to quit. I don't know what it is, but I do know there's a decision you need to make to take you to the next level. Just like I know that's true for me, because decisions shape our destiny when they're backed up with some massive ass action, okay? But you can't take that action if you don't decide. People avoid being desperate. Think of the fact when they're down and they're not where they want to be financially. Their relationships aren't what they want. Maybe they're in a desperate place. You might think that's a negative thing, but when you're in a desperate place, you take the best actions. Desperation is a great place to be. Those of you that are achieving, one of the reasons why your achievements have slowed down is that you allowed yourself to feel less desperate. When you were failing your grades at class, or when you were brand new in a relationship and you were desperate to get her to love you or desperate for him to love you, you took massive big action. So think of it. When you were desperate, you didn't care about what others think, did you? You didn't care about what you had to do. You didn't care if you failed. You didn't care about how you looked. You didn't care about the perfect plan. You just had to take action because you were desperate. So when you remove the desperation, all the BS just creeps on you. And you think you need to have the perfect plan, to look the perfect way, to look the part, and have the perfect thoughts, and be all zen. Alright, we've rambled about a lot of thoughts on this video, but I'm not here to give you the standard speech about finding your purpose. We're millennials. We'll try to do that instinctively. So, if I have no other message to offer you, and you let me give it to you right now, I'll tell you what I want you to know that's going to help you go somewhere. So let me tell you a secret. Your plan doesn't matter. Uber wasn't an original idea. Spotify wasn't an original idea. The app Waze wasn't an original idea. What only matters is execution. Are you doing the small things that is leading you to your ultimate goal? Because your plan in itself doesn't matter. Ideas don't come out fully formed. They only become clear as you work on them. You just have to get started. Been your boy Jay Martin. Peace and love.
やがって行くぞああ食いしばれ時間があるならなあうぜ一発だ